It had been a long day, but I felt a quiet excitement as I pulled into the parking lot of Audrey's fitness club. Today was our 8th wedding anniversary, and I wanted to surprise her by picking her up early. We'd planned to celebrate at home, just the two of us, but I thought starting the evening a little sooner would make it even more special. I parked and leaned back in my seat, checking the time on my watch. Audrey's session should have ended by now. I glanced at the front doors every time they opened, expecting to see her familiar silhouette. But she didn't come out. The minutes dragged on. 10, 20, 30. Most of the other gym-goers had left by then, their gym bags slung over their shoulders as they headed to their cars. My excitement was giving way to worry. I pulled out my phone and called her. The line rang, but she didn't pick up. I frowned, trying again. Still nothing. Audrey wasn't the type to ignore my calls, especially today. After more than an hour of waiting, I couldn't sit still anymore. I got out of the car and headed into the club. The receptionist gave me a polite smile, though she looked puzzled when I explained I was there to pick up my wife. "She hasn't come out yet," I said, my voice tight. "Oh," she replied, glancing toward the empty gym floor. "You're welcome to check inside. Most people have left already." I nodded, muttering a quick thanks before stepping through the doors. The gym was dead silent. I called out her name, my voice echoing back to me. Nothing. I was about to leave when a woman emerged from the locker room, a bag slung over her shoulder. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound calm. "Is there anyone else still here?" She shook her head. "No, I think I was the last one. Everyone else is gone." Her words hit me. I muttered a thank you, my legs moving almost on their own toward the locker room. I called Audrey again, and this time I heard it, a faint sound of her ringtone coming from inside the locker room. I followed the sound, which grew louder as it led me to a row of lockers. I realized she was still here, but I didn't immediately figure out what was going on. Something felt off, really off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next would change everything. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the locker room. The silence of the gym felt heavier now, almost suffocating. My footsteps echoed as I walked down the empty hallway. At the far end, I noticed a light spilling out from under a door. Above it was a plaque that read, "Trainer's Office." I paused, my heart pounding. That's when I heard it, a laugh. Her laugh. Audrey's unmistakable laugh. It wasn't just any laugh either. It was the kind she used when she was fully relaxed, comfortable, and enjoying herself. The kind I hadn't heard directed at me in months. A flash of anger surged through me, hot and blinding. My fists clenched instinctively, and before I could stop myself, I was at the door. I didn't knock. I didn't hesitate. I just pushed it open. And that's when my world shattered. Audrey was sprawled out on a leather couch, her hair tousled, her cheeks flushed. Hovering over her was a man, a tall, muscular guy in a tight tank top. The kind of guy who'd post gym selfies. The second I stepped inside, they both jumped apart like kids caught sneaking cookies before dinner. But the damage was done. I'd seen enough. The rumpled couch, her disheveled appearance, and the guilty look on their faces said it all. The coach seems to have lost his pants somewhere. There was no doubt about what had happened there. For a moment, none of us said anything. The room felt like it was spinning, but I forced myself to stay calm. I looked at Audrey, then at Herb Trainer, and let out a bitter laugh. "Well, don't let me interrupt," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Clearly, you've been working on something. Is this part of the premium fitness package? One-on-one training for mind, body, and soul." Audrey opened her mouth, but no words came out. She just stared at me, her face a mixture of shock and guilt. The trainer, if that's what he really was, shifted uncomfortably, like a kid caught cheating on a test. I took a step closer, fixing my gaze on her. "You know what? Don't bother coming home," I said, my tone ice cold. "You can live here in the office. Plenty of time to work on all your muscles. Her eyes widened, and she started to say something, but I didn't care anymore. Whatever excuse she was about to spit out wasn't going to erase what I'd just seen. I turned on my heel and walked out, ignoring the sound of her voice calling after me. I didn't stop. Not when I passed the locker room. Not when I pushed open the gym's front doors. And not when I got into my car and drove away. The anger was still boiling inside me, but I also felt something else, a strange sense of relief. I wasn't going to stick around and play the fool anymore. Audrey could do whatever she wanted, but it wouldn't be with me. When I got home, I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch. The house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavier than noise. I stared at my phone for a long time, my mind racing but my body frozen. The events of the night played on a loop in my head. Audrey's laugh, the trainer's guilty face, the way she jumped off the couch. I wanted to scream, cry, or throw something, but all I could do was sit there, numb. After what felt like hours, I opened Reddit. I wasn't the type to share personal problems online, but I didn't know what else to do. I needed an outlet, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there would have the advice I needed. I typed out everything. From waiting in the car for over an hour to hearing her laugh from inside the trainer's office, to walking in and seeing them together. I didn't sugarcoat anything. When I was done, I hit post and stared at the screen, half expecting nothing to come of it. But the responses came fast. One of the first comments was blunt and to the point. Asterisk, file for divorce, man. Asterisk. Another echoed the same sentiment. Asterisk, file for divorce, buddy. She disrespected you in the worst way possible, and on your anniversary no less. You deserve better. Asterisk. As I scrolled, the comments kept coming. Some were supportive, validating what I was feeling. Others told me I needed to leave her immediately, that she wasn't worth my time or energy. Then there were the ones that took a different approach. Before you make any final decisions, get the full story, one user wrote. Asterisk, not saying you should forgive her, but at least understand what led to this. Asterisk. Another added. Asterisk, make sure you have all the facts before you do anything drastic. It's your life, and you don't want to regret acting too quickly. Asterisk. I didn't know how to feel about those comments. Part of me wanted to delete the post, pretend I hadn't read them. But another part of me, the part that still couldn't believe what I'd seen, knew they were right. Mixed in with all the advice were messages of encouragement. People told me to stay strong, that I deserved better, and that walking away took strength most people didn't have. One user even praised my sarcastic parting line at the gym, calling it a mic drop moment. I appreciated the support, but it didn't make the weight in my chest any lighter. I locked my phone and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The responses had given me plenty to think about, but no amount of advice could change what had happened. Audrey had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And now, I had to figure out what came next. I was still on the couch, staring at nothing, when I heard the front door open. A second later, Audrey walked in. She looked like a mess, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking like she couldn't keep them still. For a second, I thought about how different she looked now compared to earlier, sprawled out on that couch with her trainer. She stood in the doorway, trembling. Nathan, she started, her voice breaking. I need to talk to you about what happened. Oh, you want to talk now? Funny, you didn't seem too interested in talking when I walked in on you with him. Her tears kept falling, but I wasn't about to let that distract me. She walked closer, wringing her hands like she was trying to squeeze some kind of excuse out of them. Please, she said. Let me explain. I let out a bitter laugh. Explain. Audrey, I saw everything. What could you possibly say that would change what I saw with my own eyes? Because, honestly, it seemed pretty self-explanatory. She flinched, but I wasn't about to sugarcoat anything for her. This wasn't my mess to clean up. She stammered, trying to find the right words. I lost my head, Nathan. I don't know what I was thinking. He's been trying to seduce me for a while, and she looked away, her voice dropping to a whisper. I was attracted to him. To men like him. That was it. That was the moment I realized I didn't need to hear anything else. I raised my hand to cut her off. Stop, I said, my voice sharp and cold. I don't want to hear another word. Nathan, please, she started, but I stood up, towering over her. Asterisk, no asterisk, my tone was final. You lost your head. That's your excuse? Well, congratulations. You've officially lost your husband, too. Hope it was worth it. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, but I wasn't moved. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the explosive way I'd been at the gym. Now, it was something colder, heavier. I was done. Get out of my sight, Audrey, I said, my voice steady. I can't even look at you right now. Tomorrow, I'll pack my things and leave. You don't have to worry about me sticking around. You've made your choice, and I'm making mine. She tried to say something else, but I didn't let her. I walked past her, into the bedroom, and closed the door. Behind that door, I felt the weight of everything hit me. But I didn't regret what I'd said. I couldn't. Audrey had destroyed us, and there was no going back. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the floor, my hands resting limply on my knees. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlights seeping through the blinds, casting soft shadows on the walls. The house was silent. No TV, no hum of appliances, just the sound of the clock ticking on the nightstand. Yet, in my head, everything was chaos. Time felt like it had unraveled. Minutes stretched into eternity, and my thoughts swirled without end. Audrey's words, her trembling voice, and her pathetic excuses echoed in my mind. Asterisk, I lost my head. I was attracted to him. Asterisk, it played on a loop, as if my brain wanted to ensure I wouldn't forget. Not that I ever could. Every memory of the day felt like a cruel twist of fate. Today was supposed to be a celebration of 8 years of marriage. 8 years of building a life together. 8 years of trust. And in one night, 1 hour, she'd obliterated all of it. My anger surged again, burning white hot. My fists clenched, my nails digging into my palms until it hurt. I wanted to scream, punch the wall, or throw something, anything to release the fire raging inside me. But I didn't move. I just sat there, seething, letting the anger consume me. How could she do this? On our anniversary? The sheer disrespect of it all made my blood boil. She didn't even have the decency to come clean on her own. No, I had to walk in and see it for myself. That image, the way they jumped apart, the way she looked at me, was burned into my mind like a brand. I shook my head, trying to push it away, but it was no use. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sprawled on that couch, her face flushed, her hair disheveled, and him, smug, muscular, and guilty. My hands curled tighter into fists. The anger kept building, but eventually, it burned itself out, leaving behind something worse. The fire gave way to a hollow ache, a deep sadness that settled in my chest like a weight. I leaned forward, resting my head in my hands, and let out a shaky breath. The silence in the room felt heavier now, pressing down on me as memories started flooding back. I thought about the first time we met. She had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. I thought about our wedding day, standing together in front of family and friends, promising to love, honor, and cherish each other for the rest of our lives. I thought about the nights we'd spent planning our future, talking about kids, vacations, and growing old together. Now, every single one of those memories felt like a dagger, cutting deeper with each thought. How had we gone from that to this? How had she gone from being my partner, my best friend, to someone who could betray me so completely? The sadness was overwhelming, suffocating. It felt like I was drowning in it, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't claw my way to the surface. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away, refusing to let them fall. I didn't want to cry over her. She didn't deserve that. And yet, as I sat there, the sadness twisted into something else. Guilt. My mind started spiraling, questioning everything. Did I miss something? The late nights at the gym, the sudden interest in fitness, the way she'd started pulling away over the last few months, it all seemed so obvious now. Why didn't I see it? I thought back to moments I'd brushed off, times when she seemed distant, when she'd been on her phone a little too much, when her answers had been just vague enough to raise a flicker of doubt. Had I been too trusting? Too naive? The spiral of guilt was relentless, dragging me down deeper with every question. I started wondering if this was somehow my fault. Maybe I hadn't been attentive enough. Maybe I hadn't been romantic enough. Maybe I hadn't been enough. But as quickly as the guilt came, a new thought pushed its way through. This isn't on me. I wasn't the one who betrayed our vows. I wasn't the one who disrespected our marriage. That was all her. She made a choice, a selfish, thoughtless choice, and I wasn't going to shoulder the blame for it. I sat up straighter, taking a deep breath. The weight in my chest didn't lift, but there was a sliver of clarity now, like a break in the storm. This wasn't my fault. It was hers. Outside, the world went on like nothing had happened. The street lights flickered. Cars passed by, their headlights briefly illuminating the room. A faint breeze rustled the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. It was almost mocking, how normal everything seemed. The world kept turning, indifferent to the chaos inside me. But even in that chaos, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't let this destroy me. I closed my eyes and made a promise to myself, right there in the quiet of that room. I promised that I would move forward. I would heal. She might have shattered our marriage, but she wouldn't shatter me. Tomorrow, I'd start packing my things. I'd leave this house, leave her, and leave this betrayal behind me. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that. But I also knew I deserved better. I wasn't going to let her actions define me. I wasn't going to let her ruin the rest of my life. For now, though, I just sat there, staring at the floor. The pain was still raw, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. But for the first time since I walked out of that gym, I felt a glimmer of something else. Resolve. I woke up the next morning feeling heavy, but there was no more confusion, no more back and forth in my mind. I had made my decision last night, sitting in the silence of that bedroom, and now it was time to follow through. I grabbed my suitcase from the closet and opened it on the bed. The sound of the zipper felt loud in the stillness of the house, like a lightning bolt cutting through the heavy silence. I didn't waste time second-guessing myself. Every item I packed was a step closer to leaving the wreckage behind. Shirts, jeans, socks. Simple, practical choices for a simple, practical departure. My toothbrush, some toiletries, a couple of books. Essentials only. I wasn't going to drag any unnecessary weight from this house with me. I wanted to leave as cleanly as possible, both physically and emotionally. As I folded the last of my clothes, I paused, staring at the empty dresser drawers. This was the end of a chapter. 8 years of memories, good and bad, all contained within these walls, reduced to a suitcase and a few quiet moments. The weight of what had happened pressed down on me again, and I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the open suitcase. I thought about her words last night. The betrayal. The lies. The foundation of our marriage was shattered, and no amount of glue would ever hold it together again. Trust is everything. Without it, love is just a hollow gesture, a word without substance. Audrey had proven that love wasn't enough to sustain a relationship if honesty, commitment, and respect were absent. She hadn't just broken my trust, she'd annihilated it. I stood up, shaking off the sadness that threatened to creep in. I couldn't let myself spiral again. Not today. Today was about action, not reflection. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. I didn't know where to start, but the attorney I contacted made it clear. I had options, and I wasn't powerless in this situation. The call felt like taking a deep breath after drowning. It was the first real step toward reclaiming control. Next, I started untangling the shared parts of our life. Joint bank accounts? Closed. Mail. Redirected to a P.O. box I just rented. Social media. Blocked. Each step was cathartic in its own way, like peeling back layers of a life I no longer wanted to be part of. It hurt, of course. There were moments when I paused, wondering if this was really happening, but I kept going. By the end of the day, I had done enough to start separating myself from her. The house wasn't my home anymore. It was a monument to everything that had gone wrong. I couldn't wait to leave. The nights were the hardest. The quiet would settle in, and memories would start creeping back in. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over again. The good times felt like ghosts, haunting me with what we used to be. The betrayal, though, that was the knife that twisted every time I closed my eyes. Luckily, I wasn't alone in this. My friends were there for me, texting and calling to check in. A few even came over to help me pack, bringing food and bad jokes to lighten the mood. They reminded me that I wasn't defined by what Audrey had done. They reminded me that I was stronger than this. Their support carried me through those dark nights, and slowly, the weight started to lift. A week later, I moved into a small apartment. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with plain white walls and a view of a parking lot, but it was mine. It was a fresh start, a clean slate. I spent the first night there unpacking and thinking about what I wanted my life to look like moving forward. I picked up an old hobby, woodworking, that I hadn't touched in years. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind busy. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I started focusing on myself. My health, my happiness, my goals. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. There were days when the sadness crept back in, when I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos or wondering how things had gone so wrong. But those moments became less frequent as time went on. I've learned a lot through this experience. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, there's no going back. Love can't survive without it. I've also learned that staying in a toxic situation isn't strength, it's self-destruction. Walking away. That's real strength. That's self-respect. Leaving Audrey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I couldn't keep pouring myself into a relationship that had no future. I deserve better, and so does anyone else who's been betrayed like this. The pain isn't gone, it probably never will be entirely. But it's dulled, replaced by something else. Hope. This isn't the end of my story. It's the end of a chapter, sure, but there's more to come. Stay strong. Prioritize yourself. Healing takes time, but it's possible. You're worth it.